So this is the solar cover reel made for the splash pools. Super easy install. Now we're going to show you how it's done. All right, so we're back in the Splash Studios, and today we're going to be making a video on how to install the solar reel on your splash pools. So first, let's go over the components when you open it up. Now keep in mind, there's two different reels. There's the light, which fits a 9x pool, and then also the 13x pools. In other words, 9x17, 13x17, 1325, whatever. So you've got a 9 width and a 13 width. Then the bigger reel is going to fit your 17 wide and your 21 wide, 1729, 2141, things like that. So two different reels. And they're going to have pretty much similar components. There's only one big difference, and we'll talk about that. So we've got two boxes laid out here, mixed and matched. So if you don't see everything that's on the table, that doesn't mean you were short parts. When you open your box, you're going to find a package that has the connecting plates, some string, and some screws in it. You're also going to find the cords that we'll use later. We're going to have some zip ties in there, and you're going to have base plates. You're going to have two base plates. Now, there's two different kinds of base plates, and either one's going to work, okay? You have the base plates that have the threaded inserts in them, and on those, you will not use the nuts that are included, or you may have these, which do not have the threaded inserts. It's just a hole, in which case you will use the nuts on the back of these. Either one works great. So you've got your two base plates or your clamps, and these were made specifically for the splash pools because, as you can see, they're going to clip over the side rail of the pool, and that's what holds them on. So those were made just for splash. You're going to have some base plates, which are these, and as you can see, they're going to fit on the clamp. You're going to have two reel pieces. The metal goes on this end, the handle will go on that end. If you order a light, which is a smaller, you're going to receive one crank handle. It's going to go in the end. If you receive the larger, you're going to get two crank handles. All right, so the biggest difference in the two kits is the bars that come with them. In the light, or the 9 and the 13 wide, you're going to have 3 pieces of aluminum telescoping pole. In the larger version, you're going to have 5. In the big one, there's 2 large ones and 3 small ones, and they all work together to create a telescoping rail, and that's how you adjust to fit the width of the pool. Okay, so 3 in the small kit or the light, and 5 in the bigger one. Other than that, they're going to be the same, with the exception of one more handle in the bigger one. All right, let's go to the next step. Okay, so for today, we're creating a solar cover reel for a 9x, the pool we have in our studio here. It's a 9x13. So it's a smaller pool, but guess what? It's the exact same process, even if you're doing a 21x41. So you're going to start with your clamps that go on the top rails and your base plates that I was telling you about. Now, this set does not have the threaded inserts, so I use the machine bolt and the nut along with the flat washer on it. And you can see that I've attached both of them. So let's go to the next step. Okay, so we've attached our base plates to our clamps. Now we're going to put them on the pool. Just like that, one on each side. All right, so we've got our clamps on with our base plates. So now we've got to actually attach the reels to the pole. Now, in our light, which is our small one, remember I told you there's 3 pieces. There's one large piece and 2 smaller pieces. The 2 smaller pieces will fit inside the larger one, and it allows it to telescope. In other words, you can set the width that you want. For example, here's a large piece and here's a small piece. So you can see how I can change the width of this by sliding it back and forth, right? I would tell you, take the instructions that you receive with it and throw in the trash, but there's one picture that might come in handy, and it's this one right here that shows the 3-piece and the 5-piece and how they fit together to telescope to get the width that you want. Other than that, there's not much in the instructions that are going to apply to a splash pool. You're going to have some tech screws or some self-tapping screws in your kit. Ones that have a little drill bit on the end. These are the ones you're going to use to attach the rod to the clamp, to the reel. Okay, so now we need to attach the reel to the rod, and it's a very simple process. Your 2 smaller ones are going to be the ones that attach to the reel. And you see they simply go over the end. Fit pretty snug, but you want to take one of those self-tapping screws It's just run it through any one of these sides. It doesn't have to be one specifically, but any one of them, and it just gives it a good solid connection on there. Do that on each end, okay? End only. You can see how I've already done this one. And you can see that I just put one screw in right there and that holds it in. So we're going to do the same thing on the other end. All right, so we've got our three pieces together. We've got our two ends secured to the rails. And here's where you have to pay attention to these. If I have a 9-foot wide pool, I want my pole to be 10 feet. If I have a 13-foot wide pool, I want my pole to be 14 feet, okay? But because the splash pool is designed for the walls to move, I don't want to just completely secure this at, say, 10 feet. This is a 9-foot pool, so we're going to go with that, 10 feet. I don't want to screw it down and make it 10 feet because then as the walls move, it's putting pressure on the pole or it's putting pressure on the walls. This is where this installation is quite a bit different from what you're going to read in the instructions. The instructions were made for the old traditional sheet metal pools, things like that, where the walls don't move. So this is where you got to pay attention. So what I did is on this one is I set it at 10 foot and I screwed one of these self-tapping screws in the end of where they connect. You can see just like this. But I did not do the other end. So if I go to the other end to where they connect, you can see this still moves, okay? I want that to move because if the walls move a little bit, this is free to move with it. Key thing to know for the splash pools. All right, so again, 9-foot wide pool, 10 foot. 13-foot wide pool, 14 foot. Just add a foot to whatever the width of your pool is because the clamps are on the outside of the walls. That's where we're getting our other 6 inches. All right, we're going to have to go out into the production area for the next step because we're going to need a little room. Okay, for the next step, lay out your solar cover, and I'm going to give you this little tip. The ends are not always square, so one of the first things I would recommend is square up your end because sometimes they're cut a little crooked. We want it to be nice and square as much as possible. So we're going to take our attachment plates that came in your kit. You'll see there's one male and one female. That makes up a set. We're going to spread these out evenly. You know, for example, on this 9-foot, I've got them about every 12 inches, but just spread them out evenly, every how many base plates you have according to your width. And what you're going to do is put the male underneath it, put the female on top, and we're just going to press them together, and it's going to put a hole in the cover. They're going to snap together, and it's going to give us a good attachment point. Just like that. All the way down. All right, so now we've got the attachment plates on the solar cover. Now it's time to take the pieces of string that came in your kit, and you're going to tie a knot in one end, get it as close to the end as possible, and then you're going to take the other end and put through the hole in the plate. It will help if you use a pencil or a small screwdriver or something like that and get the hole punched through. Then you can take the string and pull it through just like that. Now I'm going to do that for every one of these. All right, so we've got our strings through our attachment plates now. So now you're going to take the other end of the string and tie another knot as close to the end as possible. Once you've done this on all of them, take the zip ties and wrap around your pole, and you're going to simply put this knot underneath the zip tie and tighten it. Don't tighten the zip tie real tight though, because we're going to get the spacing right after we get it all done. And you're just going to go down the line and do that with all of them. All right, so we got our zip ties on. We got our piece of string underneath it with the knot. And these zip ties don't have to be super tight. All they're doing is keeping the knot from sliding through. And if you leave them just a little bit loose, it allows you to move them back and forth as you need to. So ideally, you want to have them lined up with each one of the attachment plates as you go down through there. Once you've done that, I'm going to come down through here and I'm going to snip the zip tie. And we'll get all that done. So now once I get that done, all I'm going to do is roll it up. All right, so we've got it all rolled up on the reel. Now obviously this is a 9-foot wide pool, so this is pretty easy to do. If you got a bigger pool, it's a lot easier with 2 people. But when you're done, it's simply a matter of putting the reel into the bases. And this is where, see if you didn't get this exactly right. Remember we left that one end loose? We can change it. So we get it to fit right. Guess what? We're in. Good thing about the clamps is if they need to adjust a little, it's easy to move them. So from this point, I can pull my cover out on the pool, and when I'm ready, I just use my crank, and the crank will fit either end, and I crank it back up. Nothing to it. This solar blanket will add quite a bit of swimming life to your pool, earlier in the spring, later in the fall.